Welcome to Under the Hood Podcast. In this podcast, we pop the hood and give you an inside look at the hows and whys of our ministry here at Cornerstone Church. I'm Michael Nave, your host. It is so good to have you join us for this installment of Under the Hood. And I might as well break it to you now. I'm on my own for this one. Our team this week is in final preparations for candlelight services, end of the year responsibilities, New Year plans. You might say all the elves are scurrying around, leaving me on my own. But make no mistake, as we look under the hood of Cornerstone, we come to one of the very most important transformations God has ever brought in our church. To understand who we are and what we do, this is absolutely imperative. Here's how I would say it. The hurt left a scar. The scar became a badge. The badge turned into pride. And then God crushed that pride and created from it one of our most important core values. And to make sense of all of that, we must go all the way back to the beginning of Cornerstone. So in 1998, we're talking 24 years ago now, a group of people were beginning to pray, God, are you asking us to start a new church? And that prayer began with a vision for the region. Years prior to 1998, a young pastor named Kevin Ezell called his church to become a church for this region. And his church took dramatic steps to become that kind of church, including purchasing 40 acres on the west side of Marion. But when Kevin left that church, so did the vision. In its place, a new vision, a good vision, developed in that church to focus on being a church for their city, not a region. And they were First Baptist Church of Marion, not First Baptist Church of Southern Illinois. But there was a small group in that church who simply couldn't let go of the for the region vision. So in 1999, Cornerstone was born to be that church, a church for the region. And friends, family members found themselves on opposite sides of that decision. Some would decide to stay at First Baptist. Some would decide to leave to start this new church. So friendships were strained, families struggled, and in reality, Cornerstone Church was a split that has at its beginnings real hurt. For those who left to start Cornerstone, it felt weird around those they'd gone to church all of their lives. Like, what do I say because I left? And for those who stayed at First Baptist, they felt abandoned, betrayed. At First Baptist, it was really difficult to come to church and see all the families who were no longer there. And it didn't just go away. It wasn't just a couple weeks or a few months, because that hurt left a scar. I mean, we've all had those times in our lives where we had an injury and yeah, our body healed, but it left a scar where the healing took place. And families, friendships, people on both sides of the decision experienced real hurt. There were even some local leaders who didn't think it wise for Cornerstone to be in the region, to be welcomed as a participating church in the association. Now, I can jump ahead for just a moment and say 24 years later, there has been much healing. 24 years later, we celebrate what God is doing in both of our churches. Actually, a fun part to add to the story is that in the same year, 2007, both Bob Dickerson and I became the new lead pastors of our respective churches. We have such respect for each other. Actually, Bob and I are working on something really special for our association for this entire region. And I'm really thankful for the ministry of First Baptist Church Marion and celebrate our partnership together. But we can't forget, we can't miss that there's been a scar. Always has been since the beginning. And that scar, as we look back, actually became a kind of a badge. You know, those who from the beginning started Cornerstone kind of felt like renegades, like these bold, daring people who had the audacity to start a church from scratch, and it worked. Like, not only did it work, we began to thrive, focused on serving the community and sharing Jesus. In a matter of years, Cornerstone was growing faster and baptizing more people than the other churches in our association. And that scar became a badge of, hey, this is who we are. We're the renegades. We do things differently. And look, it's working. And so what happened is that badge became pride. It wasn't that it happened in a day. It wasn't that there was a certain day that it became our reality or an overwhelming thought about who we are. But looking back, we see an unmistakable development of pride in our culture, in our attitude. And it was kind of expressed in things like, well, if you would do it like we do it, you would experience what we're experiencing. We're the ones who have figured it out. We're the ones who cracked the code. Ask us, we'll help you. Ask us, we'll train you to do it like us. And that was pride. It was wrong. And one of the most humbling realizations of that discovery is that God in his grace, he kept using us during that season that now we look back and we see the pride in our hearts. We are humbled by the reality that God used us. Actually, some of our fastest growth happened in those days of people coming to know Jesus and being baptized and beginning to attend church, some for the very first time. And then there came a time when God dramatically revealed and crushed that pride. We began to realize, hey, this is not healthy. This is not good. And hey, it's not a win for our region if one church grows and the other churches decline or die. We cannot be okay with that. We cannot be okay with this feeling in the core of our hearts of these thoughts of we're the ones. We got it figured out. Like, that is not cool. That is not acceptable. And from this place of conviction, from this place of God crushing our pride, he has brought about one of the most important core values of who we are. You see, at Cornerstone, we are for the Big C church. Now, when I say Big C, I'm referring to the church of Jesus Christ. Jesus said, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not stand against it. That's a really dramatic promise. Jesus said, I'm going to build my church, and it will not fail. Even the reality of death, nothing will stop what I am about to do. The reality is, local churches come and go. But Jesus promised that he will build his church and it will not fail. So for us, compared to the Big C Church of Jesus, we are little c, Cornerstone. And we're not kidding. Like, this isn't just some little cute saying that we have adopted. We are absolutely serious about it. We are more for the Big C Church than we are for little c Cornerstone. And as God has convicted and then crushed this pride in our hearts, I have personally sensed an incredible amount of freedom and joy. Like I have sensed the change in me, incredible freedom. Like for the past few years, I've had a growing sense of the massive and diverse work of Jesus in building his church. We were so foolish in those days that we thought everyone else should do it like us. They should not. The work of Jesus is so much bigger than Cornerstone. As I've attended other churches or gatherings of many churches, my heart has been filled with praise to God for the massiveness and the diversity of what he is doing in his church. My passion for what God is doing at Cornerstone has not decreased. Like I can assure you, I've never been more excited than I am now about what God is doing here and what God has for us in the future. And yet I am in absolute awe as to what Jesus is doing in his church. It is diverse. It is beautiful. It is done in so many different ways. Other churches don't need to do it like us to be successful and faithful. They need to do what God has created them to do, what God has called them to uniquely do. So how does this value of being for the Big C Church of Jesus Christ show up at Cornerstone? Well, one, you will hear us keep talking about the Big C Church. We will keep celebrating other churches in our region and beyond. We are part of something bigger than us, and we will unapologetically celebrate that in a way that we hope stokes praise in your heart for what God is doing at other churches. Number two, we have empowered our staff to spend up to 10% of their time. So up to 10% of the time that we are paying them to equip the saints for ministry here at Cornerstone, 10% of their time can be spent serving other churches. And 1% of our budget has been set aside for the expenses to help other churches. We have freed up our staff and set aside some money to bless other churches. We're excited to be able to do that for other churches, and I hope you sense that passion in our hearts and help us find those opportunities. Number three, we will keep sending out workers for the kingdom, not keeping them to ourselves. We are quite proud, have a beautiful sense of satisfaction that several pastors in our region came through Cornerstone. We celebrate that many have moved on to other churches, moved on in time to go serve the Big C Church of Jesus. We celebrate that, and we're pressing into it further. We developed a residency program, and the beautiful thing is some of the leaders that come through our residency will stay and serve with us, and many will be sent out. So you will continue to see us sending out workers for the kingdom, because we are far more for the Big C Church of Jesus than we are little C Cornerstone. So here's my ask of you. Be for the Big C Church of Jesus. Unapologetically invite people to join us here at Cornerstone, and celebrate when your friends end up going someplace else. Before the Big C Church of Jesus. Number two, when you hear someone from another church express a concern or talk about a way that their church is struggling or something they would like to see better, take that complaint, take that concern, take that discussion, and turn it for good. Like maybe someone will mention this holiday season of the sound not being very good at their church. Well, guess what? Alex is incredible with sound systems. Connect your friend with Cornerstone so Alex can go help them. Or maybe it's an IT thing that they just can't seem to get right. Tad is here and willing to serve. Maybe they're wondering what to do better with the kids at their church. Christine and her team is ready. Or maybe it's youth. We have Morgan. Maybe it's a finance thing, like, hey, how do you do your budget and what software do you use? Jody is ready to help. Or maybe it's an HR question, like what benefits do you offer and how do you provide a great environment for staff? Elena is ready. Or maybe it's, we don't even know what to do. Like, how do you help people get plugged into the church? Jason is ready to help other churches discover how to offer their own first steps, whatever that would be called at their church. You see, we are for the Big C Church of Jesus. Help us connect with other churches so we can continue to live out this value that God has birthed in us, so we can continue to be faithful to his call to partner with other churches to do something far bigger than we will ever be able to do. In comparison, we're just little C Cornerstone because our passion is for the Big C Church of Jesus. Help us continue to live out this value that God has placed in us. I hope this has been helpful for you today to pop the hood and understand a little bit of the history and how God brought us to this core value. As we head into the new year, I'd love to hear from you. Questions, subjects that you'd like to understand more about, the what and the why we do at Cornerstone. I'm putting together our topics for next year as we continue to lean into this. And if this is helpful for you, make sure you share it with other people who are part of Cornerstone, or maybe other churches who want to hear and understand why we do what we do, so that together we can be the Big C Church of Jesus.